I never should have looked at him like that. But how could I not? The moment the front door opened, I stopped breathing. He stood there like he was carved out of summer heat, broad shoulders framed by a charcoal. Gray shirt that hugged every inch of muscle beneath it. Sleeves rolled up just enough to show powerful forearms dusted with dark hair. There were veins running down his arms that seemed to pulse with life, drawing my gaze like they had a magnet of their own. His skin was sun-kissed, warm, golden. A man who lived under the sun. A man who looked like sin. Then came his eyes, deep set, under strong brows, a dark brown that wasn't just color, but weight gravity. They locked onto mine with such directness that I nearly took a step back, confident, sharp, calculating. That wasn't the gaze of a casual suburban dad. That was a man who noticed everything. A man who didn't look away just because you did. And his voice, God, his voice. "Hey," he said casually, but it was the kind of casual that rumbled like thunder beneath the surface. "You must be Nigel." "Yeah," I said, or tried to. My voice barely escaped my throat. Ricky hadn't warned me. "It's not about this." "Dad, this is Nigel, my friend I told you about." Nigel, my dad, Richard. Friend. That word echoed like a shield, flimsy and pointless. Richard's lips lifted slightly, just one corner half a smirk, half amusement. Then he extended his hand. I stared for a second longer than I should have. That hand. Strong, masculine, fingers thick and blunt at the tips. The knuckles slightly calloused, like he still did physical work sometimes. I stepped forward and slid my hand into his and, oh, it was electricity. Not a cliché spark. Not just warmth, but full body, bone-deep awareness. Like my skin had remembered something I hadn't yet lived. His grip wrapped around mine, firm and controlled, but not aggressive. It was a grip that said, I could break you, but I won't unless you want me to. I couldn't speak. I was burning under my shirt, and it wasn't even warm inside the house. My throat dried, my knees weakened literally. My right leg almost buckled, just the slightest shift of weight, but it was enough for Ricky to notice. "Dude, you good?" he asked with a grin. "Fine," I coughed, forcing my hand to retreat from Richard's. My palm tingled where we'd touched. Just hungry. That wasn't a lie. But I wasn't hungry for food. I was starving for something else entirely. Richard watched me. He hadn't said much, just nodded and gestured for us to come in. But as I stepped past him, I felt those eyes on my back like heat lamps, following every breath I took. I was acutely aware of my shirt clinging to my skin, of how I walked, how I looked. I'd been admired before, sure. I'd worked out, I took care of myself. I knew I looked decent, but no gaze had ever made me feel seen like this, not wanted, not undressed. And it only got worse at lunch. We sat around a cozy dining table, just the three of us. Ricky at the head, me across from him, and Richard at the other end. I tried to focus on the food: grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, some kind of herby vegetable medley, but the utensils felt slippery in my hands. The glass of water sweated in my grip. Ricky was chatting animatedly, telling stories about our classes. A prank someone pulled at school, some random girl who had a crush on him. He was laughing. Richard was laughing too, and I was barely breathing. Because across the table, Richard wasn't looking at his son. He was watching me. Not the whole time. He played it subtle. He'd glance away, pretend to reach for his drink. But then his eyes would settle right back on me, not just at my face. He looked at my arms when I pushed up my sleeves. At my collarbone, when I scratched my neck. At my lips, when I bit them, nervous habit. His gaze lingered like he had a claim to it. And every time his eyes found mine again, my heart rebelled violently in my chest. It was a sensation I couldn't control, constant state of adrenaline. Like my body knew something my brain refused to process. Every nerve in me was awake, alert, alive. I stabbed a piece of chicken. My fork rattled against the plate. "You okay?" Ricky asked again, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah," I said, laughing awkwardly. "Just tired." Liar. I was a mess. But it didn't stop. Richard's voice deep and smooth, with that hint of gravel slid over my skin whenever he spoke. Every time he laughed, my stomach flipped. Couldn't take my eyes off his jawline, the way it flexed when he chewed, or when his tongue darted out briefly to lick sauce from the corner of his mouth. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from making a noise. And he knew. I swear, he knew. Because once, just once, when Ricky was telling some long-winded story and looking at his phone, Richard leaned slightly toward me, not enough for Ricky to notice, but enough for me to feel the air between us shift. "You don't talk much," he said softly, "only loud enough for me to hear." I blinked, just listening. "You watch more than you speak." His eyes were locked on me. There was something in them, something dangerous. "You notice things." I nodded, unsure what to say. "Good," he said, before sitting back and taking another sip of his drink. And just like that, I was left breathless again. God, what was wrong with me? I was 20. I'd had crushes before. I'd had flings. But nothing had ever lit me up like this. Nothing had ever shaken me. And this man, this walking storm in a fitted shirt, had done it all with a look, a voice, a touch. Ricky cracked another joke, nudging me with his foot under the table. "You zoned out again. Dude, you're like on another planet today." I smiled faintly, barely catching what he said. Meanwhile, Richard reached for the salt across the table directly in front of me. His fingers brushed mine in the process. Accident? Maybe. But it felt like a strike of lightning. The contact was brief, but intimate. Skin on skin. Warmth against warmth. I inhaled sharply, eyes darting to his. And there it was, again that look. Heavy, lidded, appraising. Like I was a puzzle he'd already solved. Like I was something he wanted to take apart piece by piece. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me, gripping the sink with both hands as I stared at my reflection. My face was flushed. My pupils were dilated. "Get it together," I whispered to myself. I couldn't. I washed my face with cold water. It didn't help. My hands still shook when I dried them. I stared at the bathroom door like it might bite me if I stepped out, because Richard was still on the other side of it, waiting. Or maybe not. But it felt like he was. I returned to the table, and Ricky was in the middle of a story again, something about his mom calling and nagging him. Richard looked amused, chuckling, sipping his drink, but his eyes darted to me the moment I sat back down. He didn't say anything. But he didn't need to, because I felt it. That pull, that simmer. That low burn that started deep in my gut and spread outward through my chest, down my thighs, up the back of my neck. I was aching. I hated that I loved it. Lunch eventually ended, the tension dissipating slightly as Ricky dragged me into the living room to play games. But even there, even with our banter and trash talk and the sound of shooting pixels on screen, I couldn't forget the way Richard had looked at me, like he wanted to unwrap me, like he already had. The living room was bathed in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, casting elongated shadows across the floor. Ricky and I had been engrossed in our video game, the sounds of virtual battles filling the space. Suddenly, Ricky's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen. "Hey, I need to take this," he said, pausing the game. "It's my mom?" I nodded, watching as he stepped out onto the patio, leaving the sliding door slightly ajar. The room fell into a comfortable silence, the only sounds being the distant chirping of birds and the occasional rustle of leaves. I resumed the game, trying to focus, but my thoughts drifted. The earlier encounter with Richard had left me unsettled, his intense gaze still lingering in my mind. "You're quite good at that." A deep voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see Richard standing at the doorway, a glass of water in hand. He leaned against the frame, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. "Thanks," I replied, my voice steady despite the flutter in my chest. He walked over and sat on the couch opposite me, setting his glass on the coffee table. "So, Nigel," he began, "tell me about yourself. What are you studying?" "Computer science," I answered, pausing the game. "I'm in my 3rd year." "Impressive," he said, nodding. "And what do you plan to do after graduation?" "I'm considering software development," I replied. "Maybe work for a tech company or start something of my own?" He leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees. "Ambitious," he remarked. "Do you have any hobbies outside of gaming?" "I enjoy reading and working out," I said, feeling a bit self-conscious. He smiled, his eyes briefly scanning my physique. It shows, he commented, his gaze lingering a moment longer than necessary. I shifted in my seat, the air between us growing thick. Are you seeing anyone? He asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. No, I stammered. Not at the moment. Really? He said, raising an eyebrow. Good-looking guy like you? I chuckled nervously, unsure of how to respond. How many girlfriends have you had? Continued. I hesitated, the truth hanging on the tip of my tongue. Just a few, I lied, avoiding his gaze. He leaned back, studying me. Have you ever considered dating someone older? He asked, his tone casual, but his eyes intense. I swallowed hard, my palms beginning to sweat. I haven't thought about it, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned in closer, his face inches from mine. What if you liked someone older? Would that be a problem for you? Before I could respond, the sliding door opened, and Ricky stepped back into the room. Hey, sorry about that, he said, glancing between us. Everything okay? Richard leaned back, a smile playing on his lips. Everything's fine, he said smoothly. It's just having a chat with your friend. I nodded, forcing a smile. Yeah, just talking, I echoed. Richard stood up, stretching. Well, I should get back to my work, he said, heading towards the stairs. Nice talking to you, Nigel. As he disappeared upstairs, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The room felt cooler, but the heat from our conversation still lingered. That afternoon, thankfully, Richard left to meet some friends. I was too stunned to ask questions. I just nodded and tried not to stare as he grabbed his keys, winked at Ricky, and walked out with a lazy "don't wait up." The door clicked shut. I finally breathed. He's cool, right? Ricky said, tossing me a game controller. Everyone thinks he's my brother when we're out. Yeah, no kidding. We spent the next few hours playing video games, and I did everything I could to stop thinking about Richard. But even when I wasn't looking, I could feel him in my head, on my skin. As we navigated through the virtual world, Ricky paused the game and leaned back on the couch, a thoughtful expression on his face. You know, he began, growing up with just Dad wasn't always easy, but he did a damn good job. I glanced at him, curious. My mom left when I was 2, he continued. She has her own family now. Husband, kids, the whole package. I'm sorry, I said softly. He shrugged. It's okay. Dad stepped up. He was just a teenager himself, but he raised me alone. Taught me everything I know. That's impressive, I admitted. Yeah, he nodded. He's always been there for me. Never missed a game, a school event, nothing. I hesitated before asking, has he ever dated since the separation? Ricky laughed. Not that I know of. He's pretty picky. I joked that maybe he's waiting for the perfect guy to come along. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Just kidding, he grinned. But seriously, I've never seen him with anyone. I swallowed hard. Would you be okay if he started dating again? Of course, Ricky said without hesitation. As long as he's happy. I don't care who he's with. What if he introduced you to his boyfriend? I asked, trying to sound casual. He chuckled. I'd be surprised, but supportive. Love is love, right? I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. Besides, Ricky added with a smirk, if I can't find the perfect girl, maybe I'll just date you instead. I choked on my drink, coughing violently. You're joking, right? I managed to say between coughs. He burst out laughing. Relax, man. Just messing with you. I forced a laugh, but my mind was racing. The conversation had taken an unexpected turn, leaving me both intrigued and unsettled. It was past midnight when I woke up, mouth dry, throat parched. The guest room was silent, walls heavy with the hush of sleep. The whole house was still. Ricky's door was closed down the hall. I crept out barefoot, each step careful on the polished floor, hoping to find a glass of water. The kitchen was dim, silvered by moonlight spilling through the window like milk. The silence was soft, intimate like something waiting to be broken. I reached for the faucet, and that's when I heard it. A shuffle, footsteps, slow, heavy. I turned around, and my breath caught. Richard. He stood near the archway, leaning one shoulder against the frame, swaying just slightly. His button-up shirt was half open, the sleeves rolled up haphazardly. The sculpted lines of his chest caught the light in sharp shadows, and the trail of dark hair down his torso vanished into his unbuttoned slacks. His eyes were glassy, not quite drunk, but definitely affected, and the scent of whiskey clung to him, warm, smoky, and devastating. "Hey, pretty boy," he drawled, voice low and thick. A smirk curved on his lips. "You still awake?" My heart dropped to my stomach. Yeah. Just needed water." He took a slow step forward, barefoot like me. "You gonna help me walk, or what?" I froze. The air shifted. He was teasing, but his voice had a weight behind it, like he was testing the edges of something unspoken. When I didn't answer, he extended one arm lazily, beckoning. His smirk deepened. I swallowed hard and stepped forward, slipping under his arm. He let it drape over my shoulder, his body leaning against mine like he needed me to hold him up. Or maybe he just wanted an excuse. He was heavy, warm, the solid weight of him pressed into my side. His skin radiated heat like a furnace. His hand settled too low on my back, fingers brushing the waistband of my pajama pants. "Rooms down the hall, yeah," I whispered, too aware of how close his mouth was to my temple. He hummed, his breath brushing my ear. "You smell nice." I stumbled slightly. Comment hit me square in the chest, scattering my thoughts. He chuckled low in his throat, the sound vibrating against my ribs. "Careful. This wasn't fair." His shirt brushed my bare arm, and every inch of contact made my skin spark. I could feel everything: his chest, the strength in his shoulders, the way his fingers flexed slightly on my back like he was memorizing the shape of me. I walked, jaw clenched, heart racing. "Don't think about it. Don't think about." "You're quiet," he murmured, voice smooth and unhurried. I'm just making sure you don't fall." "I won't." His lips hovered near my cheek. "You like being close to me, don't you?" I stopped walking. My hand gripped his waist tighter, unthinking. And then foolishly I looked up. He was already staring down at me. That same look from Lunch, predatory, assessing. But now it was darker, hungrier. His jaw was tense. His eyes locked on my mouth. The moonlight caught in his eyes and turned them to steel. And then his hand slid from my back to my neck. His fingers curled around the nape, firm and possessive, and my breath hitched. "You've been staring since the moment we met," he murmured. I couldn't breathe. My voice cracked. "Thought I didn't notice?" His voice dropped. "You've got a pretty face, Nigel. Soft lips. I bet you've never been kissed by someone who knows exactly what he's doing." My chest tightened. My knees felt weak. "Richard," but I didn't finish. He kissed me. It wasn't soft, wasn't tentative. It was all heat and hunger. His mouth crushed mine, tongue sweeping in before I could catch my breath, and my whole body lit up like a struck match. My hands fisted in his shirt, fingers curling into the fabric, clinging to him like he was the only solid thing left. He tasted like whiskey, like something older, something dangerous and rich. He kissed me like he was starving, and I kissed him back. There was no thought, just need. Just the overwhelming weight of him, the way his body molded against mine like it belonged there. His hands roamed, one sliding under my shirt, palm hot against my back. He pulled back slightly, lips brushing mine, breath ragged. "Say no," he whispered, voice low and wrecked, "and I'll stop." Because I didn't want him to. Instead, I surged up and kissed him again, this time slower. This time I leaned into it, let myself melt into him, into the fire his body kindled in mine. He groaned softly into my mouth like I'd given him permission to take more. We moved down the hall, half stumbling, hands everywhere, mouths greedy. The air buzzed with heat, thick with breath and tension. We reached his bedroom, and he kicked the door shut behind us. The moonlight poured in through the window, slashing silver across the bed. He turned me around, pinning me gently against the wall, and kissed me again. Slower this time, more thorough. His tongue slid against mine with filthy precision, coaxing sounds from my throat I didn't know I could make. His hand tangled in my hair, tilting my head back, while the other slid under my shirt. up my spine, over my ribs, until it cupped my chest and pressed me back into him. "You've been teasing me all day," he murmured. "Did you even know you were doing it?" I shook my head, dazed. His mouth ghosted down my throat, tongue flicking along my skin. Even better. My shirt hit the floor. Then his hands were on me, hot, strong, knowing. He touched me like he already knew where to go, where to press, where to hold. His mouth followed, tasting, teasing, trailing fire over my skin. "You're gorgeous," he said, voice hoarse. "And so fucking sweet," I whimpered, fingers digging into his back. He took his time undressing me. Every button, every inch of skin revealed felt like a surrender. When I was bare, he stepped back just to look, his eyes dragging over me slowly, hungrily, reverently. "God, Nigel," he muttered. "You don't even know what you do to me." He undressed, and I couldn't look away. His body was all definition in Shadow's broad shoulders, sculpted abs, a dark trail leading lower. My mouth went dry again, but for an entirely different reason. Then he was on me again, lifting me onto the bed, settling between my thighs, kissing me breathless. His hands explored like he was mapping me. Every place he touched burned. He didn't rush. He worshipped. Every kiss, every touch felt like a vow, like he needed to learn every part of me by heart. "You sure?" he asked again, lips brushing my jaw. "Yes," I breathed. "Please." And when he finally entered me, it was slow, excruciating, beautiful. I gasped, back arching, and he caught my face with both hands, eyes locked on mine. "Breathe," he whispered. "I've got you." He moved carefully, giving me time to adjust. His voice was soft, coaxing. His kisses never stopped. It hurt at first. Then it was overwhelming. The stretch, the heat, the way he held me like I was something precious. And once I relaxed, once my body opened to him, he began to move. Every thrust was slow and deep, and I couldn't stop the sounds he pulled from my moans, gasps, whispered pleas. His pace was steady, building, unrelenting. "Feels good?" he whispered, panting against my throat. "Yes, yes, God. You're so tight, so perfect." His voice cracked on that last word, and he surged deeper, grinding in slow, maddening circles. My body trembled, back arching, nails digging into his shoulders. He pinned my wrists above my head, holding me down as he moved, kissing my throat, my jaw, my mouth. My legs wrapped around him on instinct, drawing him in deeper. "You're mine tonight," he growled. And I was. I shattered with him inside me, crying out his name, body spasming. He followed seconds later, groaning my name like a prayer, spilling into me with a final deep thrust that left us both shaking. He collapsed against me, our bodies slick with sweat, hearts pounding like war drums. We stayed like that, tangled and breathless, for what felt like hours. Eventually, he rolled us onto our sides, pulling me against his chest, arm slung possessively over my waist. The room was quiet now, save for our breathing. Moonlight kissed his skin, making him look even more unreal. I turned to look at him. He was watching me. His eyes were softer now, no teasing, no games. "Your son." His fingers traced my jaw. "Doesn't have to know, not yet. And later, we'll figure it out." Silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Then he said almost gently, "Unless you regret it." I looked at him, this man who had made me feel more wanted, more desired than I ever had in my life. This man who'd kissed me like I mattered, who touched me like I was his. I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "I've never felt more alive." His lips curved into a smile, a real one, and he pulled me into his arms again. Nigel stirred in the dim light of dawn, his body aching from the night before, the room silent except for the distant hum of the air conditioner. But something was off. Something warm, wet, and deliberate was trailing along his chest. He shifted, confused, and a weight pressed down on him, heavy, muscular, inescapable. A familiar scent overwhelmed him, masculine, earthy, Richard. His lips parted, a sharp inhale escaping him as his eyes fluttered open. Richard was above him, naked, eyes dark with hunger, hair tousled in a way that made him look even more dangerous. His lips were traveling lower, kissing along Nigel's ribs, across his abdomen, mapping his body again like it belonged to him. "Good morning," Richard murmured, voice deep and rough with sleep and something far more primal. "You're still mine." Before Nigel could respond, a sharp gasp left him as he felt the slow, slick slide of Richard's arousal pushing against him, already stretching, already breaching. "Our Richard?" he whispered, dazed, hands flying up to grip his shoulders. "Wait." "No," Richard growled softly into his ear. "You gave yourself to me last night, and I'm not finished with you yet." The weight of him, the heat, the steady push it, all came at once. Richard was slow, but unrelenting, forcing his way deeper into Nigel's sore-used body. The burn returned, intense, beautiful in its ache. Nigel arched under him, body trembling from the shock of it, overwhelmed and already helpless. Richard pinned both of Nigel's wrists above his head with one hand, dominant and commanding. His hips rolled forward in slow, merciless thrusts, each deeper than the last, spreading Nigel wide and claiming every inch of him. The pain blended into raw pleasure, his breath catching on every movement. "You feel that?" Richard growled, biting into Nigel's neck hard enough to bruise. "That's mine now. You opened yourself to me, and I'm never letting you go." Nigel whimpered under him, dazed from the force of it all. "You're insane." "Only for you," he hissed, grinding deeper, until their hips met, and he was buried to the hilt. "You're not running from this. I'll ruin you so no one else can ever touch you." The thrusts grew harder, rougher, his dominance in full control now. The bed creaked, their sweat-slicked bodies moving as one. Sounds of wet skin and ragged breaths echoing in the early light. Nigel felt like he was losing his mind, moaning, clawing at Richard's back. Hips lifting to meet each powerful thrust despite the soreness. It was raw, primal, possessive. Richard drove into him like a man possessed, his growls low and feral, his teeth scraping Nigel's throat, his lips whispering sinful things. About how Nigel belonged to him, about how he was going to make sure no one else could ever satisfy him again. And Nigel couldn't resist. He was too far gone. The pleasure was overwhelming, mixing with pain in a perfect storm that shattered him again, leaving him crying out Richard's name in the pale morning light. When it was over, Richard collapsed against him, spent and breathless. His body heavy on top of Nigel's, their legs tangled. Their chests rose and fell in sync. Nigel lay there, overwhelmed, too sore to move and too stunned to think clearly. But as the minutes passed, and Richard's breathing evened out into sleep, Nigel's eyes remained wide open. His body throbbed, marked, claimed. He could feel the ache between his legs, the bite marks on his chest, the bruises on his hips from Richard's grip, and his mind. It was spiraling. This wasn't just sex. It's not anymore. He had slept with his best friend's father, and now that the haze of lust was fading, reality was crashing in like cold water. Richard stirred slightly beside him but didn't wake. His face, normally hard and dominant, was softened by sleep. Nigel looked at him, realized that this man, this beautiful, dangerous man, had flipped his entire world upside down. He reached out, brushed fingers across Richard's cheek, then slowly slipped out from under the sheets. His legs were shaky. His muscles screamed in protest. He winced as he bent to pick up his clothes, his hands trembling as he dressed in silence. He looked back once more. Richard lay naked across the bed, sheets tangled around his waist, his body a map of muscle and desire. Nigel stared, memorizing everything, every curve, every scar, every bruise they'd left on each other. He burned the sight into his mind like it might be the last time he saw him. Then he turned and walked out. It was only 5 a.m. The sky was still tinged with darkness, the air cool. The guard at the gate opened it and greeted him. "Good morning, sir. Had a wonderful night." Nigel blinked, stunned, could barely nod, face flushed with shame and confusion. He climbed into his car and drove fast, desperately needing distance, needing space to breathe, to think. When he got to his condo, the security guard greeted him with a smirk. Back early, sir. Someone kept you up late? Nigel didn't reply. He entered the elevator and finally saw himself in the mirror. His shirt was loose, but not enough to hide the hickeys littered across his neck and collarbone. His exposed arms were covered in bite marks and bruises. But worst of all was his cheek, his dimple where a massive hickey stood out like a trophy. "Oh my God," he whispered. "I look wrecked." He was grateful beyond words that he left early. There was no way he could explain this to Ricky. No way he could lie well enough to cover this mess. He stepped into his unit, stripped off his clothes, and let the shower run hot against his sore body. The water stung against the marks Richard had left. He braced himself against the tile, fighting back emotions he couldn't name. Then his phone rang. He saw Ricky's name on the screen and froze. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello? Nigel, why'd you leave so early?" Ricky's voice was filled with sleepy disappointment. "You didn't even wake me up." I didn't want to disturb anyone," Nigel said, forcing a casual tone. "You guys were asleep?" I got a call from my parents. Something came up. Need to go to the province for a few days." "Oh," Ricky was quiet for a beat. "You should have told me. I wanted to go with you." Nigel forced a laugh. "It's just quick stuff. I'll be back soon." Ricky sighed. "Well, I hope everything's okay. Oh, by the way, Dad's in a really bad mood. He woke up pissed when the guard told him you left early." Nigel's heart stopped. "What?" "Yeah, like seriously pissed. I don't know what you did, man, but when Dad gets like that, good luck to whoever caused it." Nigel swallowed hard. I didn't do anything, I swear." Ricky laughed. "Don't worry, maybe it's just the hangover. But yeah, he asked about you. Repeatedly." "I'm sorry, Ricky, I needed to leave quickly." "Okay, be safe, all right?" "Yeah, thanks." Nigel hung up and immediately packed a small bag, booked a one-way flight to the province, and left for the airport. His hands were shaking the entire time. He didn't even have a plan. Just fear, confusion, and an aching body full of memories he couldn't process. He sat at the airport lounge, heart still pounding, when his phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. He answered. Nigel, Richard's voice roared through the line. "Where the hell are you?" Nigel's blood ran cold. "Richard, don't give me bullshit," Ricky told me. "You're going to the province." "Are you avoiding me?" He couldn't lie. I needed space. I needed to think. Richard's voice was ice and fire. "You think you can just run away after what happened between us?" "It was a mistake," Nigel whispered. "Let's just forget it." "Forget it," Richard growled, furious. "You let me inside you. You begged for me. You let me mark you, and now you think you can run." Nigel was trembling. "I didn't mean to upset you. You woke up the monster inside me, Nigel. You don't get to walk away now. Don't care where you run, I'll find you. Please, you have 1 week. Think this through, but listen to me carefully. No other men. I'm warning you. I'm a possessive man. And when you let me claim you, you gave me the right to own you." Nigel's lips parted, unable to speak. "I marked you. I made you mine. You can't run from me. You're mine, Nigel." Then the call ended. Nigel stared at the phone, pulse thundering. He wasn't sure if it was fear or arousal or both, but he knew one thing for certain. Richard wasn't going to let him go. And maybe, deep down, Nigel didn't want him to.